Hello, I'm on time. Isn't that a miracle?
Hello, hello. Good to see you, Jory.
Likewise. And I don't have a conflict today. Not that, you know, my thoughts on the image specification are just
No,
how's
shouldn't-
the weather around you? Are you good?
the
Ooh.
the weather's still a little chilly. Today went out and it was like 15 degrees out there, and
Ooh. Nope.
yeah, just thinking that's a little too cold for me. Container
I
D
know.
Summit.
All right. I am just looking at the schedule because I realized that was supposed to explore the schedule. Yay, it is live. Okay. Great. I'm gonna drop it in chat.
If you
Um,
hold off a bit, you can share with other people when they show up,
oh yeah,
because
that's a good
otherwise
idea.
Zoom doesn't show those links to anybody else after
That
they.
is a pretty terrible thing. Like
It
it should
is.
show the history before. I mean, I get why that's a little weird, but
Yeah.
um yeah.
I do take the effort to go through. It's recorded, so in the recording you can pull up all those chats, and so I'll take all those and put them in the meeting minutes later on. But I
Mm.
figure for anybody else that wants to see that when they join in, otherwise you have to keep reposting and resharing it every time. Hey there, Sajay.
Oh,
Do they
Do you have your
usually
normal?
oh go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
sorry.
Jory.
No, I was gonna ask if they usually kick off with Project Lightning talks. Cause like it's pretty cool and also a lot.
Is this the plumbing day schedule you're looking at?
This is just I think it's the overall for Cube, which I don't know. It's actually kind of confusing. No, I'm on maybe just KubeCon generic, just like the big track, not the not
So I'm one of the rare people that has yet to actually go to one of the KubeCons in person. But from what I've
mm,
seen on schedules in the past, they usually have the day zero events for different individual projects, have their little breakout areas. And I think you were trying to get us one of those rooms, and it would be like a early or a day after or something like that. Similar kind of idea. So
yeah.
those would have potentially a whole lot of different talks for them. But yeah, maybe Sasha can say more for the big event, whether they do lightning talks at a certain point or not.
Just an impressive number of like, updates and project news and that kind of stuff. And um
Is this keynote?
no, this is this I think is the day it would be they didn't call it day zero on the talk or on the schedule, but I think that's what it is. It's day zero. And I was just like, whoa, that's
Okay. Because sometimes they'll break out the keynote talks and mention, okay, you're going to have all these like 10 or
yeah,
15 speakers all come up one after another, and each one gets 2 minutes to do their quick, hey,
yeah.
this is what's going on in our little ecosystem.
I'm just searching for any of our peeps.
I wonder if whatever's going on with this Container D Summit, which I didn't know was happening today, I wonder if that's going to take a few people away from us. Might be a slightly smaller crowd. And Sajay took care of all the stuff from last time, so I don't have a lot for you today.
yay.
I was going to ask you, Sajay, do you have your normal conflict at half after?
Yeah, that they're not changing that.
Okay, no problem.
it's unfortunately one of those regular security meetings which I can't skip. Those are the fun ones.
For some definition of fun. So, Jory, before we jump into technical stuff, I guess we got enough people here for now. You want to jump in anything you wanted to share? You were talking schedule, you're going to share links, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I am namely kind of thinking about two things right now. One is getting one final trademark board member to vote so that the budget passes. But the second is that the schedule for KubeCon is now posted. Looking through to see who we've got from our OCI community who's going to be there in case there's an opportunity for us to do something as simple as like kit people with some stickers to take with them if they're going to be speaking, or if there's enough folks that might want to make a meeting happen or have host a thing. Anytime that the broader kind of community gets together is an opportunity for us to potentially see about slipping something in OCI wise. And then we'll also look at, once that last vote is in, we'll start talking about the August kind of mini summit plan. And so that's it on the OCI, on the kind of like the OCI Administrativia Ops side.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just taking notes here. For the folks that haven't been voting on the board member, that's for the budget, right?
That's for the budget. Yeah. Looking back historically, the trademark board is not a high volume group.
Yeah.
And so
have you started going after them, DMing individual to try to get people? Okay.
Oh yeah. I'm annoying, y'all.
If it is, if it's a company and you find other people like us from the same company, you might be able to work other back channels, because it could always be that whoever you're trying to reach out to, permanent
has
vacation.
moved on, and that also happened for a couple folks. Like, oh, my role shifted, and so now this other person at Microsoft is the right person. Cool, thank you. And then that person took a couple days, looked at stuff, got back to me. Sajay, can you refresh my memory which org you are with? Microsoft. Yeah, your guys voted, so you're good. So because I annoyed them. Yeah. But other folks, we just find like sometimes to your point about annoying people individually, sometimes they have turned off individual message receipt, or they've filtered out, through their email settings, like filtered inboxes that they don't check anymore. That kind of stuff happens. And so being persistent.
All the links that say please vote on this survey for us immediately go to the spam folder.
Right. That happens.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So other than me, has Docker respond to theirs as well?
That is a good question. Let me go into my notes. Let me see. I think so. Let me get my little.
I figure they're pretty good about it, but
the people who are here are typically very Docker. Yeah, Docker is good. They were actually one of the first people to reply, so that's nice. Yeah, I am who I really need to annoy, because I am usually able to annoy him, is Dan from Chain Guard. So I will be probably sorry to call out Dan from Chain Guard.
I can be annoying to people over there too.
Yeah.
You've actually got a handful of them that pop on over here now and then. And
Yeah,
so
exactly. That I was like, who's the most likely to like, get back to me?
John and Josh.
Okay. All right. I'll
Um,
go bother
those
Chingard.
two, you can ping them on the OCI Slack and be like, hey, your company, you want to do this OCI thing?
Okay. Yeah. Hey, I'll ping them right now in OCI Slack and just say, hey, can you tell Dan? Because he's listed as the rep. So
And it may be that they need to pass it off to someone else that's doing other operationally things over there or something like that. I feel like Josh missed out on the TOB thing at one point because he was on the TOB, and it was just because Changar didn't even nominate any of their people that time. So I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's another same thing where the important folks need to make those responses, just have too much on their plate right now and needs to get passed off to someone else within the company.
Yeah. I'm doing that right now.
Cool. All right. Technical wise, I didn't have too much. I threw a whole bunch of different issues on there to chat about. Important thing for all the people who are doing this, Go Digest dropped their support of SHA 384. Okay, that's the right response, Sajay. Good. Yeah, it is. They put it in there. They don't know why they put it in there. It's not in our side of the spec. So they're debating, can we take it out without making a breaking change? And I'm like, if you leave it in there, it's going to be probably more of a breaking change than if you take it out. So they went ahead and pulled that yesterday. There is discussion around OS features and what that's supposed to look like. And so whether
before we move off the digest conversation, we don't, your last PR kind of like helped clarify, right? Like you can have mixed digest between layers. We don't have any validation anywhere that's even produces content like that. And how do people reason with it, right? Like, because unfortunately that SHA-256 is also has crypto implications in some way. So then it kind of lowers the boundary of what you mean by if they have different mixes of digest. Manifest with a 512, can it have like a lower level digest? Does it actually make it right or wrong? The composition is the problem, I'm thinking at this point.
So we don't have any tests today. I want to add them going forward. And I've got kind of two things in parallel that need to happen. One is the conformance tests need to get updated to actually check this stuff. But the second is that we need to decide on how you can push a manifest by tag and specify the algorithm. Because right now it's the server that defines the algorithm if you push by tag. So those two things kind of need to happen together. And until they happen, we don't really have proper support of anything other than 256 for the manifest. If you're pushing a manifest by tag, you get whatever the server gives you. So that was kind of my response to them. I was saying, now is the time to go ahead and drop this out because nobody can really do this completely. To your point, they can do it partially. They can push individual layers. They can push individual, the config blob or something like that. They can push those with a different algorithm. And we don't have any tests for that yet. And I'd like to see us get there at some point. That'll probably be in parallel with the conformance test updates, getting that in there.
Okay. This was also the reason why there was a discussion about Blake 3, because there's some guarantees you lose the moment you move from SHA to Blake, right? So yes, it's faster, it has its own things, but it's not NIST approved. It's a bunch of things come into question. So
You summoned them. You said the magic word. Ram, now that you're here, you can try to guess what the word was. It depends on how quick your audio picked it up. But Sajay said Blake 3 and you appeared.
OCI?
We're trying to Do you know if Blake 3 will get approved in some form, like from a cryptographic standpoint?
Hmm. So the main push for Blake 3 is speed. Okay, so that is the main push for it. And
Yeah,
um, now when you say get approved, as in is it going to be taken in by Go guys, Python guys, that kind of stuff? Is that the ask, or is it approved by the crypto community in general?
right. Crypto community.
So crypto community, I think the way these things go is they have all this hashing competitions that happen, and then
Right.
candidates show up, and then one of them gets picked, right? So, but the rest of the algorithms, what happens is the community is usually smaller, and that doesn't mean anything actually, because they may be perfectly fine in terms of crypto analysis, and they may have passed the crypto analysis, no issues there. But the community is smaller, which means there will always be questions. How secure is it? All of those questions always will be lingering around.
Right.
But for us, I think what I am seeing at least is there is push for Blake 3 even in OpenSSL and all of these guys, mainly because of speed.
Okay.
That is the main push.
Right. And the reason I'm asking is we use this to kind of sign, bundle, send signatures across and all that. So will we have to live in a world where for cryptographic assets we can't use Blake 3 because of compliance and who's approving and all that, right? Like say for example NIST or any other organization that doesn't approve it, we'll have a challenge. For content it might be okay. That mixed world is kind of what I'm concerned about, because you'll have to implement. I mean, we're just talking about mixing digests and mixing algorithms. So, and we don't have a good implementation in any form that mixes these things right now. So.
Correct. So your observation is actually correct. So for if you're using this for security, then it has its own requirements. If you're using it for content addressable thing, yes, then we can sort of do other things. Um, and in terms of mixing digests, that is a world we will enter at some point, because if you have a cryptographic, a hashing algorithm that's broken in some way, then we'll have to move there. But when it happens, we don't know. But that is not the requirement for Blake 3, right? Blake 3 is the requirement is mainly speed. That's it. So if you have this large artifacts problem, and SHA family is slow because it's single threaded fundamentally, right? So how do you address that? So that is the push.
Right.
It's a user requirement driven push, not that something is broken push.
I think one important detail from the spec wise, we only say implementations must support SHA-256. Everything else is implementations may support. And we list the SHA-512 as another algorithm that implementations could if they wanted to. They don't have to.
Correct. But that document was pre-Blake world, right? That is when it was written.
Yeah.
So
But even when we add a new algorithm, we start to register other ones, going back and saying now all the implementations must support all these new algorithms, that's going to be a big ask.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of going with, even to standardize on a new set like Blake. I mean, I know that even the cryptographic, the competitions that you're mentioning, the algorithmic competitions, Blake 3 is the one that's kind of standing out right now, right? But if you can get to a better defined mixed digest world, it might be easier where uh, signatures like cosine and all that can still continue with SHA-256 or 512 or whatever they're going to move to, versus content that is gigabyte, megabytes in size can still be in Blake. The problem is runtimes like Containerd and other clients will have an interesting challenge of how do we reason with each one of these.
I think for implementations, having the manifest still in SHA-256 makes a lot of problems go away.
That's exactly what.
The
So
the
that
layers
statement is something
themselves.
that we should kind of like at least discuss, right? Like, what is it going to be? So if the manifest is not going to be in Blake 3 format, then we have an interesting mix of digest
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, the layers themselves, if you change them, you're going to find a lot more support. There's still places where you've got issues. In particular, the config has their root FS layers, and those, if that's not SHA-256, that breaks other things on runtime wise.
So I'm no authority on cryptography. So what I want to do is maybe get some help from the security folks as to what are the guarantees of a SHA-based manifest mean if you have a Blake level digest in there. And how is that a problem? Or maybe you don't trust the content, or it's almost the content. Basically, you have cascading set of signatures. Now you have compound signatures, right, in some way, which is a different problem altogether. But maybe that's okay.
From a security standpoint, you get the security of whatever the weakest algorithm is. From a
Right.
performance standpoint, you might get improved performance by upgrading a layer before you upgrade the manifest.
Fair enough.
Yeah, for example, in Sajay's case, right, in terms of the weakness. So if you're able to show a collision in Blake 3 somehow, then you have two different contents giving the same digest, and your cosine will produce the same thing, but your content changed underneath. So these kinds of these are the security implications of things.
Two different content to the same digest with the same size.
And the same size, potentially, yes. If that happens, yes.
We have folks who can actually help with these kind of discussions where, or should we get somebody on the board of these things to validate these proposals?
I tend to delegate upstream myself. So I delegate to whoever the standards body is that's standardizing the digest algorithms. If we need to do something on top of that, I guess I'm trying not to overstretch us already being pretty stretched. That might be a good question for the major cloud providers, though, because from your side, I understand the concern.
Yeah, I mean, if we say that this signature is of this content of this manifest that is 256 or 512, and but internally it's using a much weaker algorithm for the layers, then how do you claim that it's more of a compliance question and less of an actual like an actual crypto question, right? Like in some cases the crypto can still be weak and it's okay, but in cases where you have like a rubber stamping saying that this is what it is, then you get into trouble. So
When you're getting into image signing and trying to
correct,
validate the hash
Correct.
against the signature and whatnot,
right? Because
I
the manifest
wonder-
is 256, right?
I wonder for the image signing if it makes sense to raise an issue either as a joint venture with the SigStore team and just kind of work back and forth directly with them, or go to the CNCF tag security and
Yeah,
raise something
I
there.
think we'll have to do something because if we say that we accept Blake 3 as a supported algorithm, what does it mean for the entire content? Is it verifiable in some way? And if it's verifiable, like what I'm saying is like the weakest algorithm is what it is verifiable to. We cannot verify it to 256 at that point in time. Anyway,
Yeah.
food for thought.
It might mean if you're trying to enforce some security on the digest algorithms that you need to actually recursively walk every manifest and check all the content that you are signing.
Right.
Which I doubt you're doing today, and I don't know if anybody wants to do that. But
yeah, I mean, because I think clients already validate the content when they pull it, right, with the specific. If the manifest is 256, they walk every layer, and we'll have to kind of introduce that same degree of validation for Blake also. But it becomes more like I'm more worried about governing bodies, who we have to say what this is to. And trying to explain this mixed algorithm is going to be an interesting exercise. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we can propose it. Let's see how folks take it. But the push is real. Blake 3 is extremely fast, except a caveat there is the extremely fast implementation I know of is only in Rust. OpenSSL and Go, they are all OpenSSL, it's still coming in. Go is still single threaded, right? So that's the caveat.
I think at the very least, even without the performance, for the Go to really take hold is getting it into the standard library. And that's still TBD. I linked a few discussions where they're talking about getting it in different places. So that might hold out support for it more than anything else. Yeah. If you haven't already started chatting with them, Sajay, I'm thinking tag security or directly with some of the Sigstore people in back channels and get like a little joint discussion going on two different sides. Both people are concerned about the same problem. All right, let's see. Going down our list for the agenda. Thanks, Ajay. For the next one here, OS features, there was a discussion about what our syntax is for that. I think the rest of a bunch of these are going to be a little bit less interesting in that discussion. We had all the fun there in the first one. But for OS features, this is 1237. They're asking what the syntax is. And I think some of us came back and were like, what are you doing with this? So if anybody happens to be doing something with the OS features today, this would be a good time to chime in and say something. For right now, it sounds like they're just doing some validation on their side, but it's mostly the stuff that I linked them over to was the working group on image compatibility, which we've been pretty quiet for the last quarter, like 3 months or so. I don't think we've had any meetings. And so no progress over there from us. But that's the last place I know that was even suggesting using some of those features, more platform features than OS features, but potentially both. Okay, that I didn't expect too much on. Shucks, I should have hit Sajay with a great old comment before he ran and dropped, but there is a little bit of a discussion in image spec. I'm just kind of moving through our agenda items here. Pull request 1156 over an image spec where Tina and I have differing viewpoints. And so I was just kind of raising this up there to try to get some more viewpoints as to how the spec should work here. But we've got a list of the different implementations of the image spec. And this great old OCI project is saying, hey, we do that. We'd like to be listed. And I looked through there and just said, you know, hey, can I make sure that you've actually output a valid image? And they linked it over and said, okay, here's one that we did. Had a looked good to me. And Tianan's viewpoint here was that we should probably have a higher bar for projects to get onto the list. And so he's looking for a lot more adoption than where I was at. And so I'm raising this one up, get a few more eyes on this, get some thoughts on where that bar should be, if there should be a bar, how we should draw that line for who gets listed in the image spec of being in an implementation. So there's that one. And similarly, another one from the image spec. Raising up some visibility. This one's been out for a long while and nothing's happened over there. Jory, you need to say something or you just finished up with lunch? Okay.
Just finished eating.
I see people jumping on the video. I'm like, they might have, you know, sometimes that's the cue. All right. Over image spec, we've got another pull request 877. So this one's been sitting out there for a long, long, long time. back from 2021, where they wanted to specify the eStarGZ format. This one, I don't know quite what to do with. It's been bouncing around a little bit. Tina on this one was saying, hey, this should probably be someone outside of us specifying how this works. And we should just say that you implement the tar gzip and in this case, the eStarGZ. I don't know how much that really applies in this scenario because I feel like there's more that goes on with eStarGZ than just the tar format. They're adding some stuff and some of that metadata goes different places in the image that I think is important to capture in some kind of document somewhere. But I feel like this one needs a little bit more discussion as well. So just getting a little bit of visibility on that.
So the
And
ask
so,
for that. Yes, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
No,
so,
I was going to say, interrupt me, please.
okay. Yeah, so the ask for the T*GZ PR is that it become an entry media type, fundamentally.
Not just define the media type, but also how it is implemented inside of OCI. And so they were going through and specifying, some of this is saying, you know, here's how the headers are and whatnot in there. And so maybe some of that gets deferred out of the spec. But I think there's also, I don't know if it was an annotation or some other fields they were putting inside of the descriptor that was saying, here is where you go find the talk entry and here are all the different, you know, the digest of that table of contents. There was some other data they were defining inside of the descriptor, I thought. That was important.
Yeah, see, at least my take was, so the tar.gz itself could have been outside of the spec, in my opinion. It could have been its own thing, right? So, but yeah, I just landed there because that is just the reality of, it's just a pragmatic thing that happened. But beyond that, so if you take that line of reasoning, then people are free to do whatever they want. They can add whatever they want without even touching the spec.
Yep. And if we're defining a media type that is an OCI media type, which they do in this case, they define org open containers .image media type. I feel like we should probably include that in our spec because we're defining one of our media types. So that would be good. I don't know that we need to go and specify the individual structure, but I do think we need to specify when you ship this structure, here's how this impacts other descriptor fields and whatnot that get passed along the image. I'm trying to find some of that code because I know that somewhere in there. Pretty sure they put the hash of the table of contents because the client needs to be able to verify that if they're doing this iterative thing. They can't verify the hash of the entire layer because they're not pulling the entire layer at once. So I think some of that, yeah, we're making it verifiable. They do define that annotation, org open containers image eStarGZ.talk.digest. This is way down line 266 of their eStarGZ markdown file for anybody that's following along. I feel like something like that is very important to include of how you do the content verification. So it may be this gets trimmed, but I don't know I'd go all the way of saying outside the spec. I think parts of it outside. Are we good on that, Rom?
Yeah. I'll leave the comments on the PR. Let me read that a bit more.
Okay. I need to comment on it too. So
Yeah, so
you and me both.
yeah, so I think the OCI image spec fundamentally as a wrapper, right, is great. Beyond that, it's open to innovations. People can do whatever they want. At least that's my position on this. But looks like there is a bit more context I need to catch up on. So
Yeah, I go with John Johnson's comment a while back, which I don't know if it was a specific comment, but it was definitely a push from him and a few others that anywhere we can lean onto an external spec that's already well defined outside of us, just go that direction. We don't have to redefine what HTTP is. We can push those over the RFCs where that's already well defined.
Okay, makes sense. That actually makes sense to me.
Yeah. All right. This one, even though it's got a really low number, it is extremely recent, just happened this past week. So pull request number 7. That's because this is the specs.opencontainers.org repo, which I forgot even existed. I think this was a project by Vanessa that had been doing some stuff and said, hey, here's a little cool webpage thing. This PR itself, I don't think the PR needs work. There's another pull request out there to fix some other things. There's breaking all the CI, and there's still some work that needs to be done over there. The reason I wanted to raise this up was that the specs.opencontainers.org website has the versions of each individual release spec, and so you update that when you release one of our any of our specs. We don't have that as any of our release steps today, and so I was raising this enough to say, hey, maybe we should add that to our release process, where when we go through, there's a step in there that says, hey, go over there, and I don't know if it was a blog post, but there's a link over there to update some other repos out in the OCI land that says that we did a spec release. I feel like this is one of those other things where we should go in and say, hey, update this other GitHub repo. Yes, it is. It is a real thing. It does exist. And you can look back through the GitHub org to see it doesn't have a very long history. I think this was like a little Vanessa side project at one point, and someone said, yeah, sure, we'll add that. So given that it does exist, I just feel like we should probably update our release process that just says, when you do a release of any of these other spec repos, go over here and bump this version number. So figured I would raise that as something I wanted to change. And if anybody has objections or thinks we shouldn't be maintaining that, then I won't make that change, but wanted to at least raise some visibility there. Rom, are you as surprised as I am that that existed?
Yeah, yes, this is yeah, but it's nice to have all the three. I mean, this is for someone who is just entering this world, right? This whole open container. It's a nice place to have all these three different things in one place.
Yeah. It's a little prettier.
Yes.
I think for the most part, it's just a markdown reformatting, but it's a little prettier. All right, last one on my list today. We're running right through them because light crowd here, I guess the Containerd folks pulled all the air out of the room here. Canonical JSON, putting this one back on the agenda just to say that we've got myself and Tianan have differing views on this. So I just wanted to throw it out there saying, hey, I threw out 4 different options. I picked option number 3, Tianan picked option number 1. Let's get some more people to kind of weigh in on this of what direction we want to go. Whether we want to just strip this stuff completely out of the spec, leave it as is, or try to fix something or change something. So raising some visibility there, that's all. And if folks have opinions, it would be good to see some more comments on that one as well. I think the big problem with the canonical JSON is that it's not easy to do in Go today. It may get easier in the future. It's not impossible to do today. There are little hacks. I linked one of those in there. It's not a lot of code, but I would imagine on some complex JSON, it might get more overhead. Hopefully our JSON is not complex to make that overhead too big of a deal. But the biggest thing is the struct fields need to be alphabetically ordered. And I don't think it's really possible to do that when we do some of those embedded fields inside of the struct, where you have multiple things under one variable, and they've got all different fields in there. So there's ways to go do this today if you really wanted to, but hardly anybody does that. And so do we document what everybody is currently doing? Do we tell everybody they need to change what they're doing? Do we just strip out the guidance and just say, good luck, nothing's reproducible? That's kind of where I'm proposing, because today the spec says everything should be canonical, and hardly anybody's doing that.
I am for reproducibility, which means canonical way. But so I would like to get to a world where you produce images from one with one tool, and the tool itself shouldn't matter. Right? So that is, I think, the ideal place to be in terms of a standards body and standards, all of the specs. Again, dogmatic versus pragmatic. Let's do something about it. So the other thing I was thinking about is whether we introduce a new optional field called a sorted map or something, which it's a rough draft, right? That gives you a list of fields in a particular order. Maybe that is a way to do it. I don't know. So
I think if you have a map and you pass that to the JSON marshaller, it will alphabetize those fields. But the struct, it takes it in the order of the fields in the struct.
yeah.
Which is why the solution to this is to remarshal it out from whatever the byte stream you have into an interface, empty interface, and then marshal it right back out. Because the empty interface converts those all to maps.
Correct. Yeah. Okay.
That's probably it's really ugly when you know
Effective.
what's happening, but it's not a lot of lines of code.
And it is effective. It works.
Yeah.
Okay. My vote is on the canonical part staying in, which is opposite of what Yanan is saying, but that's my vote on.
So you're going with option number 2 of my list, which is make everybody become canonical. Now we have 3 votes, 3 differing opinions.
Yeah. Okay.
Which that's all valid. Everybody's got a valid opinion on this. So I just figured get lots of views on this. Let's get some eyes on it, make a decision, and then we'll move forward from there.
Okay.
I appreciate it. That was all I had. So we got free time here. If people just want a longer break until your next meeting, that's fine. People want to chat about other stuff. I'm playing with too much Hugo these days, so I'm more documenting stuff than actually writing fun code right now. Should I do a going once, going twice? All right. You folks are nice and quiet. I feel like you want to have a nice little break until your next meeting. So that's all we got. Let's go ahead and break here and check back in next week. And hopefully everybody, if you're in frozen wastelands, you're able to shovel out. Hopefully nobody here has got forest fire concerns, but yeah, have a good rest of your week. Cheers all.
Bye.